So, good evening again. This talk, the reason I particularly want to record it is that it's kind of the second part of a two-part talk. And I gave the first part Monday night at Nevada City up there, and that was set to record and got recorded, but I think it got cut off in the middle. I don't think it's gonna ever show up anywhere. I'm gonna give a little summary of the first part so that it goes together tonight, but I'm recording the second part so that that's available too. So the first part was about this is really some perspectives on the Four Noble Truths. And the first part was about the first two noble truths, of the truth of suffering and the causes of suffering. And the reason I wanted to talk about them is because just I've had some things that I've read and talks I've heard, and thinking about it, some kind of new insights, little different perspective into this major teaching of the Buddha. So the summary of part one is that we all know what dukkha is. It's suffering or unsatisfactoriness. Kind of one way to understand that is that it's understood as pain or dis-ease that we get attached to, that we get lost in a repeating pattern. We're familiar with our dukkha, with our discomfort, our sense of not rightness in the world. And one of the things that kind of got me really interested and aware is that this unsatisfactoriness, suffering, is both the outcome of these conditioned patterns of living, as in the teaching of the dependent origination, goes around in a circle, and keeps leading back to dissatisfaction. We get lost in that repeating pattern. But it's also the beginning of the chain of transcendent liberation. So that's, to me, intriguing. It's like it starts there, it ends there. So my little part of my quest there was to kind of put those things together. So dukkha can be called discomfort, can be called unsatisfactoriness, stress, disconnectedness, and there's a lot more synonyms. Sometime you might want to just sit down and write all the different ways you might describe the sense of not rightness in your life or in the moment. But one that really strikes me about now, this world we live in, which is what we got, is the sense of loss of control, the sense that describes much of the distress we're feeling as individuals and as collectives, as groups of individuals, as cultures in this time. And, I know that the only time I've lived in is this time, this lifetime, these years, and I don't know really what other times were like, what it was like for people. I know there were terrible things. There were famines, there were disasters, there were wars of all kinds, there were all kinds of cruelties. and there were they didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the resources that we have today. But in this life, which for me, I've lived over 80 years, so I've lived a long time. And I've never experienced quite the same sense of confusion and helplessness and crisis that is being fueled for all beings. I know that's not just me. And being fueled by the forces of greed and hatred or aversion and ignorance or delusion. So it feels like that we're kind of living in this thick muck of dukkha. And when we get lost in that dukkha, we lose something. We lose the present moment. And when the mind wanders off, we lose the power to act, to engage, and we feel disconnected. This is a quote from Mary Oliver. I know I can walk through the world, along the shore, or under the trees, with my mind filled with things of little importance, in full self-attendance, a condition I can't really call being alive. Read that once more because I read it kind of bad. I know I can walk through the world, along the shore or under the trees, with my mind filled with things of little importance, in full self-attendance, a condition I really can't call being alive. So, as mortals, we as human beings have inherited this basic contradiction. We all have it. We inherited our primitive instincts, the instincts that all beings have for survival. So we are driven by these instincts to eat, to hydrate, to sleep, to procreate, to stay warm and attempt to stay safe. And that's appropriate. It keeps us going. But they're very basic, and they don't have a stopping point necessarily. Rick Hansen said this: at the most basic microscopic level, it is the nature of mind to cling. As a strategy for passing on genes, it has worked spectacularly well. But Mother Nature doesn't care if we suffer. She only cares about grandchildren. And Sophocles said, nothing vast enters the world of mortals. Nothing vast enters the world of mortals without a curse. So we have karma, and one thing leads to another. So how do we break out of our conditioning like this way that we're stuck? When we go back to the contradictions, this inherent contradiction that we were born with, we have this other side, which is our human capacity to connect with the unconditioned, the awareness of our interconnectedness, the vastness beyond all understanding, that internal and external experience of the truth of change and the flow of energy that we are part of. So we know that at some level, everybody knows that at some level, but for some of us, for many of us, it's not where we spend our attention or our time, because it's elusive. It's not solid. It's not something we can touch or put our hands on, and we are kind of stuck in the material world by this inherent cycle that we've got been given. So there's suffering, there's dissatisfaction, there's restlessness, and it leads us to search for something to connect with that has more stability, that has more truth to it, that doesn't feel unsatisfactory. However, in that disconnect, in that discontent, in that restlessness, there's a lot of shortcuts. And I bet you we all try shortcuts. And those shortcuts take us right back around the cycle again. So they're not a way out, but they're tempting. The part about what I talked about on Monday night was this. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard this, because this is a popular podcast, Hidden Brain, and there was a 2-part series on a woman named Anna. Can't remember. She has an odd last name, but she's a professor at Stanford, and she is working with the idea of with addiction, and her theory and work is around dopamine imbalance, and the fact that how it works is that when we seek pleasure, and when we obtain pleasure, we get a dopamine rush. So all these things, if we eat good food, if we have sex, if we have an alcohol drink, if we go shopping sometimes, if we even just think about some things, we get dopamine rush. Video games sometimes give us dopamine rush, all kinds of things, gambling. And here's how it works. In the brain, there's one part of the brain, in the lower brain, that processes both pain and dopamine rushes, and so it's kind of the place where it's trying to keep homeostasis, trying to keep things in balance. So when we do any behavior that supplies us with the dopamine rush, at that same time, in order not to get out of homeostasis, the brain has a counter, so that we know everything's impermanent, and clearly pleasure like that is impermanent. So we, for example, eat the cookie that we're just going to have one cookie, or even only half of the cookie, maybe. I just want a little taste of cookie. And we do that, and then the dopamine rush comes, and it's like, oh, here's some more cookie. I'll have that. Maybe I'll just have another cookie. So, and then the more we do that, the more we stimulate those dopamine rushes, the more the dopamine gets depleted and out of balance, and we have more subject to withdrawal, to anxiety, depression, which go along with it. So these create this imbalance, and that they bring us to feel to suffer more, to have more depression, and so on. So the way out of this experience, the steps to the way out, and they include practical considerations that help us to restore the balance of the dopamine, that does help us to feel more balanced in our life. But they require awareness and understanding of what we're doing and what choices we're making, and the noticing the impact of the choices. So we can do a lot of things to start to have healthier ways to feel well-being, and also healthier ways to work our way out of the, if we're truly addicted to something to the point where it's interfering with our lives and we want out, the suggestion from these talks is from this Hidden Brain talk is to go on a fast from the addictive behavior for a month, and then see how you feel. And there's a whole process you can go through. So that's one way. But also there's other things that we can do instead, like more connection with friends and family and other creatures that promote a sense of well-being. We can spend time in nature. We can eat well. We can do some inspiring reading. We can listen to good music. We can write. We can sleep well, and we can practice purposeful meditation. So balance is really, really an important thing that we're seeking. So I want to talk about, let's see, where do I have this? Here we go. Just a second here. So I came upon, in the course of kind of exploring this, I came upon a sutta that I really found I really like. It's kind of a different sutta for me. And I'm going to read you a little part of it. And it's what the meditation that I was kind of working with us tonight is. This is the basis of it. It has a couple of names. One name I think is the bikini, the bikinis quarters, or no, anyway, dwelling, but the one, or it's called the nuns' quarters. It's from the so I'm gonna read you a little bit of it. Then Venerable Ananda, robed up in the morning, and taking his bowl and robe, he went to the nuns' quarters and sat down on the seat spread out. Then several nuns went to Venerable Ananda, bowed, and sat down to one side, and said to him, Honorable Ananda, several nuns meditate with their minds firmly established on the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation. They have realized a higher distinction than they had before. That's how it is, sisters. That's how it is, sisters. Any monk and nun who meditates with their mind firmly established in the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation can expect to realize a higher distinction than before. So this is a very folksy kind of of sutta, he goes on, he goes off, and he goes to their arms round and all, and then he goes to see the Buddha. And at that point, he tells the Buddha what happened. The Buddha's very pleased. And he says, oh, that's so true, Ananda, that's so true. Any monk or nun who meditates with their mind firmly established on the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation can expect to realize a higher distinction than they had before. So we know what the 4 are. I want the body, the mind, the mental, the thoughts, etc. But here's the part that I think is really interesting. As they meditate, observing an aspect of the body based on the body, and there arises physical tension or mental sluggishness, or the mind is externally scattered, the mendicant should direct their mind towards an inspiring foundation. As they do so, joy springs up. Being joyful, rapture springs up. When the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. When the body is tranquil, one feels bliss. And when bliss full, the mind becomes immersed in samadhi. Then they reflect, I have accomplished the goal for which I directed my mind. Let me now pull back. They pull back and neither place the mind nor keep it connected. They understand, I'm neither placing the mind nor keeping it connected. Mindful within myself, I'm happy. So they go through the 4 foundations of mindfulness with this same instruction. And then, so towards the end, he says, they understand I'm neither placing the mind nor keeping it connected. Mindful within myself, I'm happy. That's how there is directed development. And how is there undirected development? Not directing the mind. So on the, I meditate, observing an aspect of the body, mindful that I am happy, not directing the mind externally. A mendicant understands my mind is not directed externally, and it's over a period of time, it's constricted, freed, and undirected. And they also understand that I meditate observing an aspect of feeling. So they understand I meditate an aspect of principles, keen, aware, mindful, I am happy. That is how there is undirected development. So that's the essence of this sutta, which I thought was really interesting. And sometimes this is called the spiral path, because rather than a cycle like dependent origination, which takes us around and around through suffering, this one is a path that spirals out of the constrictions of wanting and craving and separating, and into this clear, calm connection with all things. And it begins with this preconception, this precondition of suffering. And the reason it comes out is it takes us to faith, which is the next step in the transcendent arising, is that we're restless, we're anxious, we're trying to find something. And we're lucky because we have this teachings and we have our experience to know where that connection lies. And we have that option. We know that through meditation and through directing our attention in these ways, we have an alternative to these other temporary, pleasurable, momentary experiences that create, with habituation and addiction, more suffering. So through this experience, and the other thing is, I'd never really thought about that idea of starting with this, what they sometimes call it, a inspiring sign, or that we can rely on. And I talked about that last time I talked, and Al, you brought up that memory of the Buddha that he used, that was a turning point for him, of sitting under the rose apple tree as a child, and having his first experience of stream entry, of feeling free of the conditions. So let's see if there's a couple more things I want to bring up about this. So it requires our understanding of this, and our energies, and our willingness. It's to every time we, in the same way that every time we step on the dopamine, she talks about it as a seesaw. So there's this seesaw, and every time you step on the seesaw, you stimulate the other side to do its thing. So the craving comes from that. I eat the cookie, I get the dopamine rush, I need it again, it's depleted a little bit, so now I have another cookie, and then pretty much I have to have more cookies, because we're actually depleting the source, the dopamine in the body. And it takes time, sometimes years, to heal that dopamine imbalance that gets created by these addictive practices. But this is just this healing with finding in ourselves that balance and that sense of well-being and peace that's generated by a healthy, inspiring sign, is the antidote, an antidote at least. And then there are other things, but so there's all the stresses that we experience in this time. We need to have this balance, because they stimulate more unhappiness and confusion. So I think I'm going to stop there. I'm going to read a poem here. Well, actually, I'm going to open it for discussion. I'll read a poem in a little while and see if you have any questions. I know that was, well, I don't know.
I have a question.
Okay.
That was really interesting, Maeve. Thank you. And I really liked the inspiring part. My question is about the sutta, and I didn't quite understand. It said the Buddha was talking about directed and then the undirected path. And I understood the directed to be one where you kind of conjure up something that inspires you to be happy. And I didn't quite understand the undirected path, or was that the term you used? Yeah.
Yeah. I believe my understanding of it is, it's a little confusing, is that so in meditation, you place your attention on whatever it is, this memory or this image or this whatever evokes that feeling of kind of a warmth or pleasantness, and you keep your mind there. You're meditating on that, and what the sutta says essentially is that once you kind of are grounded in that image and you stay with it, and it automatically starts to take you through the next steps. But you stay your mind on that until you feel you can kind of be aware of that sense of I'm happy. And at that point you let go of it. You don't try to keep your mind on that image anymore. You open it up and you let yourself just be experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Me.
And there's actually, I think it's it's Tricycle magazine has a series that's going on right now, but it'll be there with John Peacock and this other teacher whose name he's not American and I can't remember it, Mark something. And it's on this spiral path. It's a 4-part series on the spiral path. I haven't taken the course, but I listened to the introduction, and that's took me to the sutta, and still exploring it. So that would be helpful. But yeah, I don't know what I was going to say something else about that. Oh, just that, this is a meditation practice, but it's not just a meditation practice. It's a practice that we can use in a slightly different way in life in general, to when we are feeling the need, when we start to feel the dukkha, the discontent, the anxiety, the whatever, rather than going to our defaults, which are our habitual escapes. We can use this as a way to redirect our attention.
Well, I'm wondering about something. So it sounds to me like if you experience the positive stuff and you meditate on that, at some point the balance kicks in, so you would start feeling a dissatisfaction, something unpleasant or of a coloring that's unpleasant, at least. Would that be where you would you would be aware that this positive stuff is wonderful, but it's gonna a negative stuff's gonna kick in soon. It's like being ready for it to balance out. And so if you do that and you be ready for it to flip on to a not so pleasant thing, you're already looking for it. You're already anticipating it. So it's not as toxic, I would think. You go, okay, this is balancing out. I was feeling so great before. Now this is just balancing it out. I'll wait through this and it'll be better.
Yeah, kind of like that. I think that's close. I think the awareness that it's not like you're eliminating discomfort or pain,
right?
But remembering that dukkha is not pain. Dukkha is an attached kind of cycle that we go on when we feel pain, which is, you know, whatever it is, I'm no good, or I can't stand this, or this is too awful, or I have to do something right now. So when that comes up, we have that awareness, and we also have the awareness that there is something else. And the more we can practice with that, the more we have kind of a grounding in that sense of ease and peace. In that sense, when we let go, I think, of the directed attention, we can be with the realities, I mean, of life, or, you know, whatever it is, with the it's kind of like there's a metaphor that the Buddha used. He said, say that you that a man is carrying a load of sugarcane, and he's walking along through the hot day, and he's tired and he's exhausted, and he sits down and he takes a piece of the sugarcane and chews on it, and he feels renewed, so he can go on with his journey. So it's like that.
Mhm. Okay.
But that's pretty much what you're saying. But it's also just cultivating and nourishing that awareness that that is available to us no matter what's going on. And it doesn't mean the other is gone. It means that we have that balance. We can be with that balance. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi.
Yeah. Thank you. I always enjoy your talks, Maeve. Thank you. But I'm struggling a little bit about the dopamine bounce back. So you're having an experience of wanting something, you get it, you feel really good. Do you always have to fall over to the other side where you get something, the antidote that you're speaking of, or can you just go from one dopamine to another to another to another and never really?
That would be nice.
That'd be nice, but you deplete the dopamine. You actually do. That's a physical experience. That's what withdrawal is. So if you're not addicted to something, you know, like you have something good to eat or whatever, and you enjoy the experience, and you may at that point be aware of, it would be nice to have more, but you're discerning enough, first of all, to know the consequences of that doesn't solve the problem. Either you get a stomach, say it's food, you get a stomach ache, or, you know, you're gonna it's just perpetuating a pattern. So the process is to learn to enjoy those sensual experiences without craving or attachment, and also in process of knowing discerning the difference between those things that really feed addictive patterns and those things that feed more sense of well-being on a deeper level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think in terms of addiction or maybe stress reaction, since I retired, I feel like I do just go from one pleasant experience to another. And it doesn't mean I don't have bad experiences. Like my little dog's toe got bit off by a crazy dog in the neighborhood, and that was horrible. And it was, that was my experience of suffering in the moment. But when I look at my daily activities, I get up, I go for a bike ride, I come home, I take the dogs for an off-leash walk up in the mountains, I come back and make delicious food. So I never get that back thing of the dopamine. But I know when I was working, I would get stressed out. And then when I did eat, I didn't eat as consciously as I do now. It's like I realized what you're saying. It's like I was eating extra or eating the wrong things just to you know, I
Yeah.
guess to beat the dopamine, but I didn't realize it was just to feel better or to just be doing something that was better than dealing with the stress. So I guess it makes sense. I never read Dopamine Nation, I think is the book she wrote.
Yeah.
I heard about it and I always wondered, you know, what the whole thesis was. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. And, you know, so if you use one of the synonyms for dukkha is stress, you know, so that feel, and I think that's important, what you've done in your life. You've made choices to reduce the stress, and therefore and to do, sounds like healthy things that are pleasant and bring you a sense of well-being, and that's good. But there'll be, as you say, there are moments, no matter what, and times, no matter what, when stress comes back, and when we experience something that is difficult for us, and these practices are helpful then.
Thank you.
Sure. Al, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, well, Rick's quote about, I can't remember what, I guess he talked about evolution, only caring about, I guess, survival and grandchildren. I think the grandchildren part is interesting because we're also social animals, and so we have a basic instinct for nurturing and those kinds of things. So, I mean, we're not condemned, by our genes completely to just look out for ourselves, and and our genes, I think any baby triggers a nurturing instinct, not just our own child or grandchild or whatever, and same way. So anyway, so yeah, our evolutionary heritage has that positive side that connects as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing I was going to bring forward was just that in the sutta about the two arrows, there's a portion about that the only thing that an untrained worldling knows to do in the face of dukkha is to seek out pleasure. And so, yeah, I mean, that ties in directly with what you're talking about. That often we're seeking out pleasure not for pleasure's sake, but to mask the pain.
Exactly. Yeah. Anything to avoid the pain.
Right.
So that's where wisdom comes into play.
I think of dukkha as probably rather than having anxiety, blah, 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 on and on, all these other things, is, for me, dukkha is wanting things to be different than they are, and really looking at them and allowing them to be what they are, instead of trying to fix it or trying to change it, but I mean, being able to look at it and not be reactive, and just allow things to be as they are. I mean, that's what I've been working with, because I guess because of the situation that I live in, I wished it was different.
Mm-hmm.
I would, if I had a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
I had control, but I have no control.
Right.
They are what they are.
Yeah. And as I said, I think the sense of loss of control, the sense of, you know, you've studied, you've practiced the Dharma, you study the Dharma, you understand that, and that's helped you enormously. But part of what was interesting in that sutta is that they're talking about monastics and monastics having the same hindrances that we have, you know, that sense of sluggishness or that sense of anxiety or restlessness. Those things come up for everybody. I mean, all the time. What you do with them is what makes the difference. And I think you're saying what you do with them is realize it is what it is. It doesn't feel good to feel like you want it to be different. So you work towards acceptance and alternatives to struggling with it, which is kind of a form of the same thing that we're talking about. I mean, that, as I said, this sutta directly is talking about meditation, but it's just, it can translate into kind of what you're talking about, or what Kai is talking about, this practice of understanding where it's at, understanding where you have control, understanding where you don't have control, and trying to relax and be in that format. So anything else before I read my poem here? Okay. This poem just popped up somewhere today and I really liked it. So I have another one too. Well, let's see. I'll just read you this one first. This is called Surviving, and it's by a woman named Christina Maher, M-A-H-R. Someone asked how I survived it, and I said, I haven't yet. I walked your path with you for so long, and I am still trying to find my way back to mine. This part is unpaved, uncharted. Compasses don't work in here. I am still in the woods, but sunlight is leaking through the leaves. It's not just dark all the time anymore. I have not survived it, no, but I am every day surviving it. I really like that.
Yeah.
And maybe we have a couple of minutes. I'll read one Rumi here. Your grief for what you've lost lifts the mirror up to where you're bravely working. Expecting the worst, you look, and instead, here's the joyful face you've been wanting to see. Your hand opens and closes, and opens and closes. If it were always fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding, the two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as bird wings. So there's the balance again.
Yeah.
So are we ready for metta?
Mm-hmm.
So just bringing the attention back into this body, feeling the sensations of being alive with gratitude in this moment, just for being able to listen and think and feel and experience in this moment. And gratitude for all the circumstances, all the people, all the events, all of it that's brought you to this moment. And then sending these wishes to ourselves. May I live with an open heart and an open mind. May whatever blocks or covers my heart or my mind be dissolved, so that through open-mindedness and open-heartedness, I may experience true happiness. May I feel healthy and strong in my mind and in my body. May I have peace and ease in the things I need. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. And may I awaken and be freed from suffering. And as we let ourselves feel these wishes for ourselves in our own hearts and bodies, to the extent it's available, we can let them spread out into this group, this Sangha that we have this evening, and out into the larger community of beings in our neighborhood, our friends, our families, creatures that we share the air and the earth and the waters with, our pets, people we know and we don't know on the streets and on the roads. We send these same open-hearted, open-minded wishes for peace and well-being, safety and awakening. And we send them out into the larger community of beings all around this land, all around this earth. May all the beings on this earth live with open hearts and open minds. May we all find our way to true happiness and be safe and peaceful and at ease in our lives. May we all have the things we need, and may we all awaken and be free. And then we send these same wishes out into the universe and beyond to all beings everywhere, those that are seen and unseen, known and unknown, born and to be born. May all beings everywhere be at peace, have the thing and be free. And if there's any benefit we've gathered through our practice here this evening, may we dedicate that benefit to the well-being and the awakening of all beings everywhere.
Thank you, Maeve.
You're welcome. Good to
Good night.
see you.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, Maeve. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Thank you, mate.
Great to see you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Here we go.